Years have elapsed, but the riddle encompassing the vanishing of Brandon Swenson, a 19-year-old student hailing from Marshall, Minnesota, endures unsolved. The enigmatic tale began unfolding on May 14, 2008. In 2007, Brandon commenced his collegiate journey at Minnesota West Community and Technical College after completing his high school education. The fateful episode unfolded on the cusp of the academic year, specifically on the evening of May 13. Brandon partook in an end-of-semester gathering in Lind, situated approximately 7 miles southwest of his hometown, Marshall. After midnight, he bade farewell to his friends and embarked on the journey homeward. The path from Canby, his location that night, to Marshall was one he knew well. He traversed this 30-mile route almost daily. The region was thinly populated, and the typical duration of the trip was around 35 minutes. However, destiny took a disquieting turn during Brandon's homeward journey. His Chevrolet Lumina swerved off the road and got wedged in a small ditch. Despite strenuous efforts to dislodge the car through physical exertion, he was met with frustration. His appeals for assistance to friends remained unanswered, prompting him to dial his parents' number at 1:54 in the early morning. Brandon conveyed to his concerned parents, Brian and Anita Swenson, that neither he nor the car had suffered any harm. He simply required aid in extricating the car and returning it to the driveway. Upon receiving their son's call, Brian and Anita promptly set out for Brandon's estimated location. Brandon had confidently stated that he was halfway between Lind and Marshall, just a brief 10-minute drive from their home. Assured by his certainty, his parents embarked on their journey. However, as they approached the spot Brandon had indicated, bewilderment and anxiety engulfed them. Their son and his car were nowhere in sight. Brian and Anita dialed Brandon's cell phone, instructing him to watch out for their arrival. After a brief search, they illuminated the headlights of their pickup truck, hoping to make themselves visible to Brandon. To their astonishment, Brandon claimed he couldn't hear their horn or discern any lights on the road. Puzzled, they questioned his certainty regarding his location, to which he confidently affirmed that he was indeed at the right place. The parents beseeched Brandon to activate his car's headlights, anxiously scouring the pitch-black night for any hint of a distant glow. Yet their efforts proved futile, as nothing materialized from the profound darkness. The phone line remained open throughout this perplexing search, but Brandon's patience wore thin. He grew increasingly frustrated, convinced that he had accurately communicated his location to his parents, and baffled by their inability to locate him. Eventually, overcome with exasperation, Brandon abruptly terminated the call. Initially, Brandon had chosen to remain close to his stranded car, but he became convinced that his parents had taken a wrong turn and would never find him. Growing weary of waiting, he determined to reach what he believed was the nearby town of Lind on foot. In the distance, he spotted what he assumed were the town's lights, and thus, he informed his parents of his intention to head there. Brandon directed them to meet him in the parking lot outside a bar. Brian agreed, dropping off Anita at home before setting out for Lind. As Brandon journeyed on foot, he maintained a conversation with his father over the phone, providing updates on his progress. He mentioned walking along a gravel road and later taking a shortcut through a field. At one point, he reported hearing the sound of water nearby, though the darkness obscured any visual confirmation. Undeterred, he pressed onward toward the distant lights, which he believed were the lights of Lind. Then suddenly, just after 2:30 a.m., Brian heard Brandon exclaim, "Oh no," over the phone, and the call abruptly terminated. Alarmed, Brian desperately attempted to reconnect with his son, only to be met with frustration as all calls were immediately diverted to Brandon's voicemail. It seemed that either Brandon's phone had succumbed to a drained battery or some unforeseen issue had momentarily disrupted its service. Brian's sense of loss and helplessness grew with each repeated pass along the same stretch of road, yielding no sign of Brandon or his vehicle. Annette and Brian enlisted the aid of Brandon's friends, embarking on an exhaustive all-night search, scouring the area for any trace of Brandon's car. After hours of relentless searching, they became convinced that they had scoured every conceivable location. They even returned to Lind to scrutinize the bar parking lot, just in case Brandon had somehow reached it, but it remained shrouded in darkness and devoid of any signs of his presence. Panic set in around 6:30 a.m., and the parents were gripped by the certainty that something had befallen their son. In their desperation, they contacted the Lind police to report Brandon missing. However, the police did not share the parents' urgency, considering Brandon an adult with the right to disappear if he so chose. Anita attempted to explain that something had transpired just moments before Brandon's phone had gone silent. Despite conducting an extensive search of Lind, the police were unable to locate Brandon there. A subsequent examination of the roads leading into town yielded no leads. Upon examining Brandon's cell phone records, investigators made a startling discovery. Brandon's calls to his parents had not originated in Lind, but rather near Taunton, another small town situated along State Highway 68. Taunton was positioned on the primary road leading to Canby, northwest of Marshall, and was located 25 miles away from Lind. The search for Brandon now focused on the Taunton area, and it didn't take long for investigators to discover his car. It had come to rest in a ditch off a gravel road just over the Lincoln County line, approximately a mile north of Highway 68. A thorough examination of the car's interior yielded no evidence of injury or foul play. Remarkably, Brandon's account of the events during his call to his parents had proven accurate. The only discrepancy was his mistaken location. The area surrounding the car displayed no discernible footprints to indicate the direction in which Brandon had walked. A deeper analysis of his cell phone records revealed that his call to his parents had been routed through a cell tower near Minnesota, another small town situated along Highway 68, approximately 4 miles southeast of Taunton. A comprehensive search operation was initiated, guided by the information gleaned from Brandon's cell phone records. Helicopters scoured the area from above, while search dogs were deployed on the ground. The canines quickly picked up Brandon's scent, tracing his path for nearly 3 miles. They determined that Brandon had headed westward across fields, ultimately arriving at an abandoned farm. Continuing their pursuit, the dogs followed the trail alongside a river, but their tracking abruptly ceased at a specific point near the water's edge. It appeared that Brandon had entered the river at this juncture. The water ranged from knee-deep to approximately 15 feet, and even if he had ventured into the river, it did not necessarily mean he had met a watery fate. There remained the possibility that he had managed to make it to the opposite bank. A comprehensive survey of the 2-mile stretch along the river was carried out. If Brandon had drowned, his body should have been carried downstream, yet no trace was found. The local sheriff diligently calmed the riverbank for a period of 30 days, but his efforts were fruitless. Investigators began to doubt that Brandon had drowned in this area, as his body would have likely been discovered promptly. Official search efforts ceased after a week, but Brandon's family refused to give up hope and continued their independent search. On May 24 and June 7, approximately 100 volunteers joined Brandon's parents in combing areas south and east of Porter. Some utilized ATVs to cover more ground, while others traversed the terrain on foot or horseback. Despite their unwavering dedication, they discovered no clues regarding Brandon's whereabouts. The search resumed during the autumn season when fields in the area were cleared. Cadaver dogs were brought in to assist, but they too failed to yield any results. With the arrival of winter, marked by blizzards and freezing temperatures, the search was once again halted. By this point, an astonishing 122 square miles had been meticulously combed, yet Brandon remained elusive. Numerous theories emerged in an attempt to elucidate Brandon's baffling disappearance. Some speculated that he might have orchestrated his own vanishing act, but this seemed highly improbable. Brandon was excelling in his studies, having recently completed a course in wind energy. He harbored no issues at home or at school, eagerly anticipating a transfer to an Iowa-based institution to further his education. He had no legal troubles and maintained a close bond with his family. Another theory suggested that Brandon had been struck by a vehicle while walking, with the driver panicking and concealing the body. However, this theory was cast into doubt by Brandon's account to his father, stating that he was walking through a field, not on the road. This assertion was corroborated by both cell phone records and the tracking path of the search dogs, which indicated that Brandon was not on the road. Furthermore, if such an accident had occurred, evidence would likely have been left at the scene. The area where Brandon went missing was sparsely populated, with only 135 residents in Taunton at the time and a mere 175 in Porter. Much of the landscape was dominated by farmland, with houses few and far between. It's plausible, if not highly likely, that Brandon's disappearance was a tragic accident. He ventured into the dark fields and rural roads with no streetlights to guide him and no readily distinguishable landmarks. Corn and soybean fields stretched endlessly in the dark, all appearing indistinguishable. Brandon had mentioned hearing the sounds of water, possibly slipping into the river at some point. However, this didn't necessarily spell doom. He could have extricated himself from the water, disoriented but alive. He might have continued walking for a while before succumbing to the harsh elements, likely perishing due to hypothermia. While Minnesota boasts a population of wild animals, including bears and large wildcats, an attack by any of these creatures would have left behind evidence. Additionally, had an animal attack occurred, Brandon's personal belongings, such as his keys, phone, glasses, scraps of clothing, and traces of blood would have remained, which was not the case. The fate of Brandon Swenson remains an enduring mystery, and his case has become one of the most famous and enigmatic disappearances to date.